But the best team that probably has the best chance to, a team that almost did last year, but I think they had different divisional records, came down to tiebreakers. Indianapolis Colts, 11-5 last year. Um, Obviously had a few losses. Phillip Rivers retired, so did Anthony Costanzo, and then other notable losses really just Justin Houston on the defense. Yeah, he ended up signing with Baltimore. In terms of additions, though, they made the big trade, assigned to trade for Carson Wentz, and then to shore up the left tackle spot, they added Julian Davenport and also Eric Fisher from the Chiefs, who's still, I think, coming off that. I forget if I think his was ACL or Achilles. Regardless, it's one of those serious ones where he's probably not going to be back for a couple. He's going to miss the beginning part of the season.
Right.
Draft wise, added Kwity Paye, who we both liked in the draft at 21, and then just I wasn't going to know him, but because of recent events, I threw him in here. Quarterback Sam Ellinger. I actually didn't get what round, but it was in the later
It
rounds as
was
well.
fifth round,
Fifth
I
round.
think.
Okay, so yes, and obviously, if you, I haven't been informed, living on a rock. Earlier in training camp, and a couple weeks ago, Carson Wentz broke his foot. His availability for Week 1 is in jeopardy because it was like a 5 to 12 week timeline. Quentin Nelson suffered the almost exact same injury basically, and he has a similar timeline. They're all pro guards, so already kind of behind the eight ball. Indianapolis here. How do you feel about their offseason moves? And do you think that they have any chance to even make the playoffs, much less win the division?
I think they do. I mean, I thought they had a offseason where they improved. Um, I mean, I thought Phillip Rivers was good, but I think that Carson Wentz has higher potential than Phillip Rivers. Um, I'm not as high on Carson Wentz as some people might be. Like I know Colin Cowherd, who I'm not a big fan of, he had him as like I think the second best arm talent in the league.
Okay, real
And
quick.
and just in
I
that
love
top five, by
Carson
the way.
Wentz. Before I love Carson Wentz. Not a big fan of Colin Cowherd, so that really surprises me. But even Pete Carson Wentz, I would not put him at 2. He's up there in strong arms, but he's not at
Yeah.
2.
That top five also for the record did not include Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, which
Did it
I
have Josh
thought
Allen?
was
I don't think it had Josh Allen either.
I don't I don't think it had Josh
I
Allen.
think it
I
had
think he
Drew
had
Brees, like 39-year-old Drew Brees, when like everyone
I
was talking about, man, Drew just can't hit the deep ball anymore. Anyway,
can't even remember who was in there.
it was
I feel like
blasphemous.
yeah, it
It's like
was
one of
bad.
those like childhood traumas where you just like force it mentally out of your brain,
Right.
and and you successfully just forgot it. That's what happened to me. It's just a blank. It's a like a skip on the old VCR in my brain.
It's one of
It
those
was so
things that
bad.
I will forever use against Colin Cowherd because I'm not a big fan of a lot of his takes. I know that he's funny and he has crazy analogies, but a lot of his football takes I strongly disagree with. Anyway, I bring up that to say I'm not as big of a fan of Carson Wentz as a lot of people are. But that being said, I do think he has a lot of talent. I do think that a lot of his circumstances in Philadelphia, although I do blame him for some of it, we saw that Philadelphia was not a very good team. I think a lot of people still expect this Eagles team to finish last in the division, and that's the NFC East, which is a really bad division. So, yeah, I don't put all the blame entirely on him. I also don't put all the blame entirely on their head coach, who they fired. I am blanking on his name.
Oh, they
Uh,
had Frank Reich. Oh, you're talking about the Doug
the
Peterson.
Eagles coach, Doug
Doug
Peterson.
Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are putting the blame on Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. Those two guys. I don't put it entirely on them, although both of them deserve it. Anyway, uh, I think that this Colts team could make a lot of noise in the playoffs because they have a really good defense. They have a surprisingly deep running back room with Jonathan Taylor, with Martha Mack coming back healthy. Jordan Wilkins is good. Naheem Hines is really solid. So they have a lot of options at the running back spots. They did lose Anthony Costanzo, but they still have a really solid offensive line. Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith, Quentin Nelson, when he's healthy, is obviously arguably the best offensive lineman in the entire league. So if they're healthy, I think they can make a lot of noise. And I do think that with Frank Reich, Carson Wentz should return to being a really, really good quarterback. I think that sometimes there's just certain quarterbacks that in the right scheme, it just works. And we saw that with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, Frank Reich made it work. and he made it work to where Carson Wentz was an MVP level candidate before he got hurt. And so I'm not saying he's going to be an MVP level candidate, but I think he should have a lot of success. The caveat to all that is he has to be healthy. Carson Wentz has struggled with health, unfortunately, throughout his career. And I'm really rooting for him because I no matter what team a player is on, it just really sucks to see someone who cares so deeply about, the game of football and wants to go out there and has had success and just can't because of consistent injuries. So I'm hoping he's healthy because I also would like to see this Colts team in action. I think they have a Super Bowl level defense. And if the offense works out, I think they have talent. So if they're healthy, I think they finish second in the division. I think they're a wild card team. And I think they can make a playoff run depending on the seeding. I'm not going to put them above like Kansas City or Buffalo or teams like that. But I think they have the keys, if once again fully healthy, to match up with those kind of teams because of their defense, because of the running back depth, and because of Frank Reich, Carson Wentz.
All right. So yes, obviously I was kind of alluding to
real quick.
Yeah.
I even assuming Carson Wentz plays at all this year, I think they will finish second in the division. And that's not entirely because of how good they are, but also the two teams below them are bad.
Yeah, so I just want to read to you the beginning. They have a brutal schedule throughout the season, and I think, and that's why I worry that Carson Wentz and/or Quentin Nelson are going to rush back, especially Wentz because of you mentioned his injury past, and I just feel like, especially if he was mean in that situation, like he you just don't want that to be a part of your stigma, and it personally annoyed me. Just real quick on Wentz, annoyed me when he got injured. I saw a tweet from a pretty notable person that's on TV, and I saw it on Twitter. It just wasn't right. Call him Carson Wentz. I think you know who I'm talking about. It's like people act like these people want to be injured, or you know what I mean. It's like no one wants to be. It just happens, and like I just hate when people blame the injury on the player because oftentimes it's not. Now some of these Carson's injuries have been on him. He's just like I mentioned, I think last year, just a little too reckless. He's not sliding, he's still trying to truck people like he's at North Dakota State. Not that he can't in the NFL level, but you're a franchise quarterback. You don't be doing that, man.
Gotta slide.
Playoffs. Okay, sure. But yeah, regular season, come on, slide.
Not everybody's Josh Allen. You need to play like
even Josh Allen. Like after like week 4, he stopped trying to stiff arm and truck every linebacker. Right. I feel like Doug McDermott got in his head. It's like, hey man, you can't do that because right now our defense sucks and we can't lose.
All it takes is one hit,
Yeah, like we've seen that with plenty of other quarterbacks. But I mean, pretty brutal start for the Colts. Week 1, Seattle. Week 2, Los Angeles Rams, a very good defense. And then going to Tennessee, and then you go to Miami week 4 at Miami. We know that's good defense. Another revenge game at Baltimore. Okay, Texans. Yeah. But then you go West Coast to San Francisco, who we all expect to be healthy and better. And then you play Tennessee again. So pretty rough stretch. Teams. Yeah, pretty rough stretch to begin the season, especially if Wentz isn't 100% and is trying to play through that injury. Same thing with Quentin Nelson. Regardless, though, I think offensively, I think kind of like you to the line outside of the tackle and obviously missing Quentin Nelson, which I mean I don't expect him to be gone long, but this bad reports anyway. I think even if it's not Carson Wentz, I think they'll be able to make do, maybe win a couple of those games. But regardless, I think to still be a solid offensive line. I think both the quarterbacks that they have, Eason and Ellinger, if they're behind center, I think they can maybe win a couple of games out of that stretch. But defensively, I mean, I like Kwity Paye. Deforrest Buckner was a great addition, obviously, to Darius. Leonard got paid this offseason. And, they had a few rookies last year. Rocky Sin played solid, and Julian Blackman was good at safety. I worry that the defense will fall off a little bit just because they do run that Seattle scheme. A lot of teams have, because of how popular that scheme has become, they have a lot of counters to that, a lot of answers. So if they don't mix it up defensively, that's the only thing I'm worried about. But kind of like what you're alluding to, I don't see this team as a top-tier AFC team, even when fully healthy. And that's a huge caveat when fully healthy. Otherwise, I think they're going to be a wild card-ish team, even with Carson Wentz. But we'll see. I mean, I think we're going to see very early on, especially if Wentz and Nelson get into the fold, just how good this team is. Because offensively, I think they can be up there in the top five, top tens of the league if if Wentz is rolling and the run game's going, and because they have good young receivers too. We saw Michael Pittman had a kind of caught on it in the last year. Paris Campbell, if he can just once again, if he can just stay healthy, he was kind of showing a bit the first few games last year too. So and then obviously they still have Ty and guys like Zach Pascal too. So yeah, I think this will be a fun team to watch. Definitely, I think they'll be in a lot of close games. But in terms of wins and losses and overall result, I'm kind of with you. I just don't see them going very far, even if fully healthy, unless Wentz is just rolling like he was that MVP season. And
Right.
like you mentioned, that defense is going to. The only other thing I'm worried about too is that their defense's lack of depth. You know, outside of Deforrest Buckner and now Quiddy Pay, who's a rookie, which we don't even know how well he'll contribute. And I think they have another. I forget the other edge guy. I think it's Torre. He's been pretty solid too. Other than that, I mean, when those guys go down or they start tiring out on a 17 game regular season, I worry that they're not going to be as effective in the playoffs. And the key to the Seattle scheme is getting pressure with your front four. And if they can't do that, then you guys are on islands. So that's my only worry for the Colts um, for this season. But yeah, a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty already. Like I already told you, I'm scared. I just got scared in one of my keeper leagues about naming Jonathan Taylor my keeper just because I'm afraid an injury is going to happen and I'll be stuck with that. So,
So I actually have a question for you on Jonathan Taylor,
uh huh.
because as you know, because you actually drafted for me in one of the leagues where I could not. I
You're
was
welcome.
very high on Jonathan Taylor
Uh huh.
last year. I think I won that league.
I think you,
Um,
yeah, you had Kelsey. You had a
anyway,
really good team.
yeah, I had a really good team. Anyway, Jonathan Taylor, I had him in pretty much all of my leagues almost. I think like maybe 2 out of my 6 I didn't. But do you think that Jonathan Taylor will have a better or worse year than last year? Because I, as a Jonathan Taylor owner in many leagues, have had similar questions about using him as a keeper. Luckily, in the ones where I do have keepers, I actually have really clear options ahead of him, like
Okay.
Travis Kelsey, and then another one I have Stephon Diggs. So I mean, I have other guys who I'm keeping ahead of him. But how do you feel about Taylor? Because there's just this thing in my gut that says that I think he might not be able to match what he did last year, and a part of that is Marlon Mack's going to be healthy, and Heem Hines actually overall I think was the most productive of the running back groups for most of the year. And I do think that Taylor's blow up at the end of the season, he had a really easy schedule. Uh, and this is just fantasy purposes, not real
Yeah.
life, just fantasy.
It's tough because like you mentioned, you got off to a good start last year or a good end last year, and I feel like okay. So on one flip side of the coin, I feel like now this year he'll actually have a training camp, and
Right.
and such like that. Something he didn't have last year. That's why I think why it took him some time to get acclimated to the league. Now, granted, like you kind of alluded to last year, didn't have Marlon Mack, so that opened the door for him to get more opportunities. And knowing, just looking at Frank Reich the way even last year, but even going back to Philly, he likes to kind of keep it kind of like how New England keeps it fresh with the running backs. It seems like every game there's a different featured back. Whether it was like Jordan Wilkins had a good game a game or
Yeah,
two
they
last.
ride the hot hand.
Naheem Hines had like a 2 or 3 week stretch, and then it finally took Jonathan Taylor. But so see, for me, I'm only losing a third round pick for Jonathan Taylor. So in my eyes, it's worth it. And obviously, I'm gonna get Marlon Mack, and or
Right.
just as a handcuff. If we're looking just talent wise too, I just think that Taylor's the best of all three
I
backs
would agree.
too. Like just in every overall aspect, and I think he's their best, just home run hitting running back. He's the most explosive one. So this depends on, I guess, if your league's like mine, where you're only like I said, like I'm only losing a third round pick if I keep him. I think I would pull the trigger. Otherwise, if you have better options, I would just go for it because also you never know sophomore slump. And then, like I mentioned, Quentin Nelson might be gone for at least maybe week one, maybe longer. Who knows? They aren't really like solid at left tackle, so that could be an issue. Um, yeah, it's tough, but so yeah, if you feel there are better options, I would go for them. Again, depends on your league and your scoring too.
So I'm currently sitting. I mean, like if I did keep him, it's an auction league, and
Okay.
so I would pay $15 to keep him. I think maybe $18.
Okay.
Which it's a $250 budget, so like it's
Okay.
not a
That's not
ton.
a lot.
Um, but and that's the league where I have Kelsey and Stephon Diggs though.
Oof.
So I'm not gonna keep him because Kelsey I got for like 38. Diggs I got for like 19, which is a bargain.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna go for like the 40s now, based on some of the other guys last year. So I'm not gonna keep him, but I'm interested to see where he'll go in terms of price because I am letting him go because of the
That's
year
true.
he had last year. I Part of me thinks that because, for example, like Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, those guys were going for like high 30s. Part of me
Oof.
thinks that he might start getting into that territory. And I'm just wondering if he is worth that sort of price. My gut tells me no, but I agree with the points you said. He's the best talent on the team, but my rule of thumb is always I don't like running backs who share. I'm a very selfish person. I love teams like the Cowboys where Tony Pollard is so talented, but they don't care and they just give it a Zeke like every play.
Yeah.
Because in fantasy, like I just want my guy to get as many opportunities as possible. And so Marlon Mack, Naheem Hines, all these other guys, I just don't like that group being strong. And then also I am worried about the Quentin Nelson and Carson Wentz injuries potentially affecting him, specifically Quentin Nelson, but even Carson Wentz, because
Yeah.
I'm not super high on Sam Ellinger. I don't know a ton about Jacob Eason. I don't think defenses will respect them, especially considering they don't necessarily have a receiver like a DeAndre Hopkins or somebody that's going to scare you no matter who the quarterback is. So then I think that just means you got to rely on the run game, and Quentin Nelson's not there. I have concerns, essentially, is what I'm saying, especially with that tough schedule you read out. I mean, playing the NFC West, you got Arizona with J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, assuming he's not traded. You got the Rams with Aaron Donald. You got the Niners with their defense. So there's I don't know. Basically, my wrapping this up is my gut tells me that Jonathan Taylor is not going to have the year that I think people will draft him for, because I think last year he was going in like the 6th, 7th round, maybe 5th round, around
He's
there.
going around there.
I think I could see him being like a late 2nd, early 3rd, and I don't know, maybe he lives up to it, but I'm just not sure. There's
Yeah.
question marks.
Also, another team they play, Tampa Bay, one of the best run defense in the league. So,
That's tough.
yeah. So I will say though, if he does struggle being the season, just for everyone out there, maybe inquire about trading for him low after like week 8 or 9. They played and then they only play they do play the Bucks I think week 12, but other than that it's like Jaguars twice, Jets. The Bills defense wasn't that great last year in the runs. Texans again. Okay, New England we don't know, but in Arizona, then the Las Vegas, like not the toughest defense. I mean, except for maybe the Cardinals, not the toughest run defenses to end the season. So just something to remember. But
if he does struggle, that's a really good point. Maybe inquire, because last year he did finish strong after struggling.
Yeah, so that could happen again this year. But all right.